I started when I was 8 and didn't like practicing. I don't think a lot of kids like to practice. I was encouraged strongly by my parents to practice every day, and it paid off. But I didn't really start to enjoy it until I was in high school. I graduated from Oberlin Conservatory with a degree in piano performance, and then I got a master's degree in Boston at Boston University. And there is where I met my husband and started teaching in a community music school for about 12 years. My husband was teaching at that time adjunct at Tufts University, and we always gave a two-piano recital each year. One year, they sent one of the pianos out to be rebuilt. And so the head of the department told my husband, well, you'll either have to do a solo recital or maybe you and Barbara want to do a piano duet recital on one piano. And she sort of sneered. And at that time, piano duets were not held in very high esteem as far as professional. So I said, let's call her bluff. Let's do it. Piano duets require a lot of choreography. They're almost like figure skating. So you can have mid-air collisions of the hands if you're not careful. You have to decide who's going up and who's going under. And we looked at each other over the table at breakfast the next morning and said, wow, I think maybe we should do this. We were about 35 at the time, which is kind of late to start a career. But our last teacher, who was Theodore Lethvin in Boston, said, it can be done. It'll take you about 5 years to get going. And that's what it took, about 5 years. We did a New York debut in 1982 and started performing. The most exciting place that we played was in Russia at the Grand Palace at Peterhof. We had a full audience. It was in the throne room of the palace. It was huge. And they had a grand piano, and we were underneath a portrait of Catherine the Great on horseback. Early on, we decided to go into schools to do our programs. And we tailored our programs using not only music of the time, but also history. We would go back to the time of George Washington and perform music from that time up through Gershwin, and even some contemporary music. Whenever we did large venues like universities or concert series in a community, we would ask for them to arrange us to do school programs because it's so important to bring music into the schools, and especially professional performers. Of all the schools that we worked in and that I worked in, this school has a special feeling about it. The students are quite serious about their work, but they're also very fun-loving. And the academics that are presented here are quite advanced, really, for a school system. I didn't study the Iliad until I was at Oberlin. I think, as I say, this is just a school that is superior. And I tell stories about the school to a friend of mine in Boston, and he says to me every time I tell him one of these stories, he says, I can't believe how lucky you were to land at that school. And I feel that way too.